in our tangent, is that also your appreciation? Because China's refused to renounce the option of use of force in Taiwan. Does China want to keep this sword of Damocles hanging on Taiwan's head? Or is there a realization, as Brian Ho, our guest from Taiwan, points out, that there will be massive casualties in China, and Xi Jinping knows that?
Well, quite frankly, I find Brian's analysis a little strange. He talked about the massive consequences for China. I'm not in favor of war. I don't think it achieves anything, as we've seen in Ukraine. But quite frankly, mainland China does not have to fire one shot to reduce Taiwan to its knees. Over 40% of Taiwan's economy, if you add Hong Kong and the mainland together, which obviously they're the same thing, all they have to do is say, Taiwanese, please leave and take, and you were going to confiscate your possessions. They haven't done that. I don't think they will. They're not going to act like the U.S. did towards Russia by taking the property of individuals without recourse to law, or making any proof that just because you're Russian that you can take their money.
So in our tangent, so you say that to bring Taiwan to its knees, China can just tell all the Taiwanese businesses and nationals in their country to get back to Taiwan. Brian, respond to that.
It would be 40% of their economy.
Fair enough. But what impact will that have on the Chinese economy? But Brian also wants to respond. Respond, Brian.
So yeah, I mean, economic relations go two ways. China is highly dependent on Taiwanese semiconductors. So what happens then? The nuclear option for Taiwan perhaps is cut off access to semiconductors for China. So that everything from Teslas to the missiles that China has directed at Taiwan are reliant on Taiwanese semiconductors. The integration of any country, whether it's small or large, and Taiwan is a medium-sized country. You look at the size of the population, similar to Australia, 20th or so largest economy in the world. It's not small. And given that China it's not a one-way direction. Assuming then that just you can, say that then we're going to cut off Taiwanese people, we're going to seize their property and so forth. You have to think about which industries are reliant on Taiwan and vice versa. For example, China tried this in the past with tourists, saying that, well, we'll cut off your access to tourists, your economy will go bankrupt. COVID happened. There were not tourists. China reduced the number of tourists going to Taiwan, not heavily affected. For example, in this time frame, China has cut off, for example, exports of grouper, citrus, pineapple from Taiwan to China, and those are very limited industries. Actually, it did not have a huge effect. The government would redirect market shipments elsewhere. These were relatively limited. It was attempting to set an example. But the thing is that it cannot just be seen as China's big, Taiwan is small. That is a very blind understanding of the economy.
Fair enough. General Hasnain, is Xi Jinping now virtually unchallenged in China? There are reports that say that Premier Li Keqiang, who was believed to be critical of Xi Jinping's zero-COVID policy, is likely to step aside. So the only Xi Jinping's yes men would be in the Central Committee, in the Politburo, and the Standing Committee?
See, Gaurav, obviously there has been some disquiet in China over the last 6 to 8 weeks. Normally, these kind of reports don't come out of China, the kind of things that we've been hearing. Everything is otherwise clamped down upon, but we find that a degree of rumor mongering has been taking place. There's no doubt that the next 7 days will tell us who actually, in terms of memberships, who will form a part of all these very, very important institutions which form a part of this entire exercise. But having said that, the fact that there has been a little bit of disquiet, there have been some symbolic protests, which has of course been suppressed immediately. There is obviously some seeding which has taken place. And the protests particularly has been against the COVID policy, the handling of the COVID policy. Everyone, social media penetration in China is there, and we know that now with the 5G all over the world in the near future, it's going to be very difficult to clamp down on a lack of transparency. So you will find that there will be some kind of a disquiet and protests, etc., which will be simmering within. The kind of control which Xi Jinping had in the last 10 years may not continue in the manner that it will pan out over the next 5 or maybe 10 years. And therefore, I think controls will be comparatively diluted and Xi Jinping
and not consolidated, as some argue. Because
I
some
know,
say...
not so much, not so much. I think it will be diluted to some extent, and Xi Jinping will be forced to act with greater strength, strongly, more on internal security than on external affairs.
Interesting.